Going on, everybody? Thank you so much for coming back to another video, and in today's video we're going to be talking about Mulan. And of course, as you guys can tell from the title and the thumbnail, this is a review of the remake of Mulan that was supposed to come out earlier this year but was delayed due to the pandemic, and now we're finally checking it out. It was actually the next movie I was going to see in theaters before everything got shut down. I had the tickets ready, and then of course we know what happened there. So here we are. It's finally on Disney Plus via their premium access thing. They already announced that the movie will be on Disney Plus for everybody else in December, but right now it's on there if you want to pay the $30 to get early access to the movie. And there's been a lot of debate online on whether or not it's worth it. As somebody who supports the film industry and is a huge fan of Disney, I had no problem doing this. Plus, I wanted to be able to see it as soon as I could so I could review it here for the channel for you guys. But yeah, I guess I will say it's really up to you whether or not you want to pay that extra $30. I liked it. I had a good time with it. I don't think it's as charming or as good as the original. I haven't gotten around to reviewing the original Mulan, the animated film, here on this channel just yet, but I love that movie. It's easily one of my favorite Disney animated films. Everything from the animation to the charm, the characters, the humor, and the heart of the story, it's a lot more impactful than I think this film is. Now, I have mentioned in previous reviews for Disney live action movies that I never really hold the live action movies to the standard of needing to be better than the original films. In most cases, they're not. I think the only one that actually is arguably better than the original film is the Jungle Book movie. I feel like when you go back and watch the original Jungle Book, it's charming, it's cute, it's got great songs, it's a fun thing to watch, and it's nostalgic. But I think the Jungle Book that came out in, I think, 2016, I can't remember what year off the top of my head, but the Jungle Book, the remake that they did with Jon Favreau's, yeah, I found that film to be a lot better, and I felt like it elevated the material. I found it to be a lot more entertaining than the original Jungle Book. Whereas in this case, yeah, it's just not as good as the original Mulan, but that's not to say that it's a bad movie. This time around, you have, I believe her name is pronounced Yifei Liu, as Mulan. I thought she did a good job. There's some times where she feels a little bit too plain, like there isn't too much emotion going on. She always looks distressed, but then I thought to myself, this character is in a very stressful situation, so you do understand that. But I enjoyed her in the role as Mulan. I thought she was good. I thought she fit the role really well, and I enjoyed her interpretation on it. Of course, I guess I should just get this right out of the way. Some of the biggest differences that people were talking about as far as when they were making this movie was the fact that this movie was not going to have certain characters like Mushu, who was played by Eddie Murphy in the original film, the character of Shang, who was like the general and the love interest of Mulan in the original film, her grandma, the cricket, so many little things. The villains are different in this movie. In the original film, there's the main leader of the Huns, whereas in this one you have two main villains, and one of them's a little bit strange, and I wasn't really a fan of what they did with one of them, specifically the witch character. If you guys have seen, there's like a woman that can turn into a bird, and she has all these different powers. This movie definitely dips its toes in, you know, still the fun, fantastical elements of, you know, Mulan, and kind of being able to do some new different things with it. And there were times throughout the movie that I found there was a little bit of a clash in tone, where sometimes certain things were a little bit more on the lighthearted, goofy side, and then a big chunk of the movie, I would say majority of the movie, definitely leans more into being a little bit more of a grounded, more realistic take on this. Obviously, I say realistic, but it is still fantastical. There's people running on walls, there's people doing all kinds of crazy acrobatics, and they do obviously establish that there's some form of magic in this world. There's some sort of fantastical elements within this world of Mulan. So you're never watching this ever expecting it to be fully realistic, but there is a more grounded, more serious take to the story than there is in that original film. Now, what I'll go ahead and praise right out of the gate when it comes to this film is a pretty great use of practical effects, nice costumes, there's some great set design. However, I kind of have to use a backhanded compliment there and say that there's quite a bit of weird CG implemented throughout the film. There are times when they're actually filming on site, they're in mountains, or they're at least in hills or fields where you can see that they're definitely there. And then there's moments where there's just a very obvious green screen background. There's a moment in the film where she is atop a bunch of mountains, and the mountains and just that entire area, the background just looks so fake. And then you ever see those moments in movies where you have a character who is very crystal clear because the camera quality is just really good, but then behind them, you know, maybe they're riding a horse or they're doing something and the green screen around them just kind of makes them stand out a little too much, where it seems a little bit fake. There was quite a bit of that in this movie, where there's just a bunch of moments where it felt like there was a big difference between the person being right there in front of the green screen and the green screen behind them looking very obviously like a green screen. In the first few minutes of the film, I was a little worried I wasn't really gonna love it, because they went for the kind of goofy approach to Mulan's childhood. There's a moment in the beginning of the film where she's falling off of a building and, you know, she catches herself, but the way she goes about it, it was kind of like, I didn't know what I was getting into. It kind of had like a very cheesy Disney vibe, but then the rest of the film is a lot more grounded. But then there's also a moment where she's riding on a horse, and riding next to her are two CGI rabbits that are very cartoon looking. So, you know, there's times where the movie felt like it had a clash in tone and a clash in visuals at times, but for the most part, I did enjoy the film. I think this is a movie that you don't necessarily need to see immediately or pay the extra $30 to see on Disney Plus. I'm glad I did. You know, I think if I hadn't, I would have been really thinking about it and wanting to. So I can understand if you're thinking, I just need to see this for myself and I just want to pay for it. Go for it, because that's a supporter of this kind of stuff. I would never turn anybody away from that, but my recommendation would be just to wait till December, because I don't think that the movie is absolutely phenomenal. I think the original Mulan is a lot better. I think there's some great special effects in here with a blend of some special effects I don't feel as good as some of the others. There's some great choreography in here as far as some of the action. I was engaged, I was entertained, I never looked at my phone, I never felt bored throughout the film, but there were a couple moments where I kind of questioned to myself, am I as emotionally connected to this story? And the answer was no. Obviously, one of the biggest things that people were talking about was the fact that this film did not have the songs from the original films. There are moments in the score in the background where they do reprise just the melody of some of the songs from the original film, but there are no songs in this movie at all. So there's no singing and there's none of that. There is no mushu, none of that jazz. So it is a very different take on the film. And one of the biggest things that kind of I was hoping to kind of feel a little bit more attached to as the film went on were the side characters. I enjoyed all the side characters that were in the movie, but I just felt like I never had enough screen time to even really learn their names. There are so many of them, or, you know, a good amount of them, and I never really felt like super attached. And in that original film, you know, the three guys that she makes friends with that are at the camp for all the guys that are, you know, training, you know, Shang, Mushu, the horse, the cricket, it just felt like there was a good set of side characters that were memorable, and you felt more emotionally attached to them in the original film. Whereas in this film, the side characters were cute and funny, and I had a smirk a few times with them, but I never really learned all of their names. They don't really spend a lot of time with them for you to really feel invested in who they are and their story with Mulan. So on an overall level, I liked it. I thought it was a good time. I don't think it's necessarily something you need to spend $30 on right now. I think wait till December and just see it on Disney Plus. I think if you're a fan of Mulan, I'd say, you know, go in and check it out. I think you'd have a good time with it, but go in with tame expectations. I think if you're somebody who sees that something's made into live action and instantly assumes it's gonna be better or that it should be better than the original animated film, then you're gonna disappoint yourself, because this movie is not trying to be better than the original film. I think that it is a cool, different interpretation to Mulan. I enjoyed a lot of the action. I enjoyed the character's journey. And by the end of the film, when everything was wrapping up, I found myself pretty emotionally connected to her story, specifically with her family and her coming back. Obviously, we already know the story, right? Like, there's really not much I can spoil here for you. The bare bones, the bone structure of what that original Mulan story is here. There's just different characters in the mix. They remove certain elements, and, you know, it's a little bit more of a grounded take on the story. And by the end of the film, I did find myself connected to Mulan and her journey and coming back to her family, and that moment with her family when she does come back. But throughout the film, I couldn't help but think, yeah, this just doesn't have the same heart and charm, and it isn't as memorable as that original film. So yeah, that's where I'm going to wrap this up, guys. Mulan, I enjoyed it. I'm very curious to hear what you guys have to say. I think this is a movie that's going to be debated with some fans, because I think there's some people that are probably really gonna love it, and I can totally understand if you do, and if you do, that's awesome. And there's gonna be people who think that just because it's not as good as the original film, that it's complete garbage, and I don't think it's that. It's not my favorite of the live action remakes that they've done, but it's nowhere near being my least favorite. So I'm definitely curious to hear what you guys have to say. So Hit that like button down below if you guys enjoyed this video. Comment your thoughts. Did you pay the $30? Do you care to pay the $30? Or are you just gonna wait till December? Definitely wanna hear what you guys have to say down below. And also I just wanna say a big thanks to all of you guys for continually supporting this channel. There will be a lot more new reviews for new movies like this coming out very soon. And I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about this one. So as usual, I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.